Good evening.
Good evening.
Madam President, I've been here long enough to have participated in the discussion during the last term about providing education resources to people who were born in this country of immigrants. And up until that point in time, they were prohibited from the same status that U.S. children in Connecticut could avail themselves of. And it was pointed out to me that every tuition payment had a surcharge. And when I began to think about it, I thought, well, maybe they shouldn't be required to pay the surcharge if they can't partake in the grants. And I thought it was a pretty simple conversation until I went back home to the district and was reminded by a couple who lost an individual on September 11th in the Trade Center. And they had received a phone call from their child. Their child was up on one of the upper floors. And they were assured that they were going to find a way out, and they did not. And they took that bill pretty seriously. They took it seriously because in their eyes, anyone here illegally shouldn't be here. So that's the base that they start with. And I said to them that they had a right, in my eyes, to feel the way they felt. Their pain, their suffering had qualified them, and whatever ill will they felt about me for having supported that bill, I accepted and I understood. But now we're here today, and I think to myself, so what is the separation? What is the distinguishing act? It's certainly not entry into this country. It's probably been going on for 20 years or more. So it's not entrance. That's not a distinguishing fact. Nobody's tracking people down. We live amongst many of the people that are here. They've overstayed work visas. They've overstayed education visas. They may have come here to visit a loved one. And they never went home. I would agree with Senator Sampson. I think they have been dealt a tremendous disservice by elected officials in the federal government. You don't hear a word about this anymore. Nobody's clamoring to make a deal. No one's trying to find a pathway for some portion of the individuals that are here, not because they came here legally, or maybe they were legal in the beginning and they overstayed their paperwork. No one is trying to fix this at the federal level, and we can't fix it. And so until they fix it, we're going to tinker around the edges. I think I just heard the phrase small domestic violence issue in a chamber where we have heard nothing but trying to protect people from the least significant domestic violence issue. Almost as a matter of, well, it's okay. People make mistakes. I couldn't believe the list that Senator Sampson read, except that when I looked for it, it's true. So I guess it doesn't matter. It's not bad enough that you overstayed your legal documentation. It's not bad enough that you visited somebody and just chose never to go home. By the way, in many countries in this world, that would never happen. In many countries in this world, you can't even get a work visa. Yet we are a welcoming nation. I don't know what the limits are. I read the articles that Senator Sampson spoke about, the one in Bridgeport. I read that article. Does that make all immigrants bad? No. Does that make everyone who overstayed their visa a criminal? No. I learned today that you can't get a judicial warrant for a civil matter. I'd be walking around the 30th district with this document thinking, well, you can go get a warrant. You can't get a warrant. Can you imagine? You can't get a warrant. I didn't go to law school. I wouldn't know the difference. My constituents wouldn't know the difference. But they're going to know the difference now. They're going to know that in 9 pages, there's a lot of stuff in here that says you can do this and you can do that, and you got to notify this person and you got to notify that person. But at the end of the day, you can't do anything. Madam President, I heard also that somehow I'm not qualified, I guess, because I didn't actually hold a child or look at a child that lost a parent that may have gotten deported or was put in prison. Well, you're looking at a guy that hired a person that was here illegally. Didn't know it at the time. Didn't speak English. No one would give him a chance. I gave him a chance and I hired him. And he actually became a citizen. And his kids actually got educated here. Somehow, I'm not qualified, I guess, because I don't recognize color or race. People should take a look at our backgrounds before they make those statements blanketly, because I'll tell you, color never meant anything to me. If you could do the job, you were hired. That was at my business. That was in the community that I got elected to and re-elected to and re-elected to. And I took great pride in hiring individuals when they were qualified, whether they were black, Hispanic, white, it did not matter. For me, this is an issue of where is the line? Where do we draw the line? I just don't understand. We get criticized because we use the phrase sanctuary state. But that's what my constituents think it is. If they do something wrong, there's a problem. If you're here without proper documentation and you do something wrong, somehow it's less of a problem. I heard the no-fly list being talked about. I remember when the Governor Malloy, signed an executive order saying you could not get a credential to buy a firearm in this state if you were on the no-fly list. Couldn't do it. You could be a U.S. citizen, you could be 75 years old, and if your number and your name matched that list, you were out. But being on the no-fly list or on some other credential list, apparently, the way this is drafted, wouldn't even qualify someone to make a phone call. Couldn't even make a phone call to detain you. So, Madam President, I'm lost. I got to be completely honest with you. I came in here today thinking that this was going to be a pretty easy conversation. I thought it was going to be straight up. But it doesn't seem so for me. I just can't imagine that we're having a conversation about a scenario that can't be accomplished. It just can't. But I guess that's where we are tonight. So I am going to listen to the rest of the debate. I am troubled that we are no longer going to consider those 7 circumstances as justifiable reasons to have that conversation with our federal counterparts. I don't remember how I voted. I suspect if it was almost unanimous out of the House, then I was a supporter, but I can't swear to it. But, Madam President, this really is troubling. Not troubling for those that are here legally, not troubling for those that are here and work every day in businesses that are all around us that do not break the law and do pay taxes and have that violation, civil violation of not having the proper documentation. This actually clouds that issue, and I think that's the most troubling part about that it does cloud it. And once again, I remain extraordinarily frustrated at the federal level that they have not figured out a way to fix this. I don't have to be made happy in that solution. Not everybody that's here without proper documentation has to be happy. But until that gets fixed, this is just going to become more and more of a problem. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Minor. Will your